And the GBS, what is the pathophysiology, what are the clinical features, diagnosis and treatment of GBS. A very important topic regarding A level, that is GBS, that is Guillain-Barré syndrome. So what is GBS? So GBS, it is a heterogeneous condition with several variant forms. So it is an acute immune-mediated polyneuropathy usually preceded by the infection. So what is the definition of GBS? So GBS is a acute immune-mediated polyneuropathy, and the typical clinical features of GBS are progressive symmetrical muscle weakness, which is associated with absent deep tendon reflexes or the deep tendon jobs. So in the patient of GBS presents to you with progressive symmetrical muscle weakness associated with the absent deep tendon reflexes, and this is the classical GBS. There are certain variants of GBS in which you will get sensory involvement apart from the motor involvement also, but in the classical form the GBS is a pure motor involvement. The patient is having the progressive symmetrical weakness and there are absent deep tendon reflexes, and there is no bladder and bowel involvement. And this GBS, it is also known as the AIDP, that is acute inflammatory polyradiculoneuropathy. And when it is called the AIDP, when the disease progresses less than 4 weeks. So according to the duration of the illness, it is labeled as either AIDP or the CIDP. AIDP, it is labeled when the disease progression is less than 4 weeks. When the disease progresses for more than 4 weeks, it is known as the CIDP, that is the chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyradiculoneuropathy. So what are the typical clinical features of GBS? And the typical clinical features of the GBS are prominent involvement of the motor nerves, and it may progress for up to 4 weeks. So there will be weakness of all the 4 limbs with a proximal bias. There will be bilateral facial paralysis. There will be the weakness of the bulbar muscles, weakness of the respiratory muscles. Reflexes are gradually reduced and then lost, and sensory signs and symptoms, and autonomic failure in certain cases. So in the pure form of GBS, you will get a progressive symmetrical weakness of all the 4 limbs. So now come to the etiology. What is the etiology behind the GBS? So this paralysis of GBS, it usually follows a preceding infection. This infection may be either the gastric infection or it may be a respiratory infection. So the gastrointestinal infection may be due to Campylobacter jejuni or Helicobacter pylori, or there may be respiratory infection due to Mycoplasma pneumoniae, and this preceded infection, it is usually before the 10 days of the disease, and it is due to the consumption of the unpasteurized milk, undercooked pottery, contaminated water. This leads to the gastrointestinal infection. And this GBS, it is apart from the infection, preceded infection, the GBS, it also follows the certain immunizations. So there are incidences of GBS which occurs following the administration of vaccines like rabies, influenza and poliomyelitis, and following the administration of conjugated meningococcal vaccine, particularly the serogroup C. So the GBS may occur either due to preceded infection, which may be a gastrointestinal infection, or may be a respiratory infection, or it may occur following the administration of certain vaccines. So this is the etiology behind the GBS. Now come to the pathophysiology, how the GBS occurs. So GBS, it is the result of a cell-mediated immune attack on the peripheral nerve myelin proteins. So there is a myelin sheet. Every nerve, whether it is a central nerve or the peripheral nerve, is surrounded by the myelin. And this myelin, it is formed in the central nervous system, it is formed by the oligodendrocytes, and in the peripheral nervous system, it is formed by the Schwann shell. So this myelin sheet, it is formed either by the oligodendrocytes or the Schwann cells. So this myelin sheet, what is the function of the myelin sheet? The myelin sheet provides the protection to the peripheral nerve, and it is responsible for the conduction of the impulses from the axon to the dendrites. So in the GBS, there is a cell-mediated immune attack on the peripheral nerve myelin proteins. And what is the best accepted theory behind the GBS? That there is an infectious organism which contains an amino acid which mimics the peripheral nerve myelin protein. So there is infection, and this infectious agent is having a amino acid, and this amino acid is similar to the peripheral nerve myelin protein. So our defenses or our body presume that this organism is responsible for the attack for the infection as well as the peripheral nerve myelin protein. So the immune system cannot distinguish between the two proteins, and it attacks and destroys the peripheral nerve myelin. So this is the best accepted theory behind the occurrence of the GBS. So, and the most importantly protein is the ganglioside GM1B. It is the most likely target of the immune attack. So whenever there is an autoimmune attack, there is an influx of the different proteins, different complements, and the different opsonins like the macrophages, which causes the inflammation and destruction, and which leaves the axon unable to support the nerve conduction. So by these different agents, there is a destruction of the myelin sheath which surrounding the peripheral nerve. So there are the different clinical features of the GBS. In the pure form of the GBS, there is only motor weakness is there, and along with the motor weakness there is areflexia and no bowel and bladder involvement. But in certain cases you may see the certain other clinical features also, like the bulbar involvement. In bulbar involvement, the patient will have the dysphagia and the facial weakness, which interferes with the eating, and they increases the risk of aspiration. So bulbar involvement may be seen in 50% cases of GBS. There may be cranial nerve involvement, and the most commonly involved cranial nerves, either the facial nerve, that is the 7th nerve, and the oculomotor nerve, that is the 3rd nerve. So these two cranial nerves can be involved in patients of GBS. And there may be autonomic involvement. This autonomic involvement may be in the form of loss of lability of blood pressure. So the blood pressure will fluctuate with either with hypotension or the hypertension. There will be postural hypotension. There will be profound bradycardia, occasional asystole, and in the urinary incontinence or the retention. So in certain cases of GBS, you may see in the autonomic involvement. There are certain subtypes of the GBS. At present, we are talking only the classical form of the GBS, which is known as the AIDP, that is acute inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. But there are certain other variants of GBS also, like acute motor axonal polyneuropathy, acute motor axonal neuropathy, acute motor sensory axonal neuropathy, and Miller-Fisher syndrome. So in the acute AIDP, it is more commonly seen in the adults rather than the children. There will be the rapid recovery is there, and the antibodies are directed against the anti-GM1. And when you go for the electrodiagnostic, the features are predominantly showing the demyelinating features. So in electrodiagnostic, you may get either a demyelinating feature or you may get a axonal feature. So the demyelinating, whenever there is a predominance of demyelination, the electrodiagnostic, you will get a slowing of the conduction, or you will get the conduction block. But when the axonal predominance is there will be reduced compound action potential. So by the electrodiagnostic, that is the LCV. So LCV will show whether the patient is having a pure demyelinating feature, pure axonal feature, or both the features are there, that is the demyelinating as well as the axonal. Whenever the demyelination is there will be slowing of the conduction, so we will get the slowing of the conduction velocity as well as the conduction block in the nerve conduction velocity. And when there is only axonal form is there, you will get the reduced compound action potential. So in AIDP, there is predominantly demyelinating type is there. So there will be first attack on the Schwann cell surface, and there will be secondary axonal damage. So first there is a demyelination, and then there will be axonal damage. Now there are certain variants of the GBS, that is, first is the acute motor axonal neuropathy. In acute motor axonal neuropathy, there is only the motor involvement is there, and there is a predominance of the axonal part. And it is seen in the children as well as the young adults. It may be seasonal. There will be the rapid recovery, and here the antibodies are anti-GDM1A. So these antibodies are different according to the variant of the GBS. In AIDP you will get anti-GM1 antibodies, and in acute motor axonal neuropathy you will get anti-GDM1A antibodies. And in electrodiagnostic you will get a axonal feature. There will be first attack at the motor nodes of Ranvier, and the extent of damage is highly variable. Another variant is acute motor sensory axonal neuropathy. In acute motor sensory axonal neuropathy, there will be motor feature are there, as well as the axonal as well as the sensory features are there, and there will be predominance of the axonal part. It is usually seen in the adults. It is uncommon, and the recovery is slow, and the electrodiagnosis shows the axonal predominance. And pathophysiology is same as the acute motor axonal neuropathy, but the sensory fibers are also affected. And there is a syndrome related to GBS which is known as the Miller-Fisher syndrome. This Miller-Fisher syndrome, it is a triad of ophthalmoplegia, ataxia and areflexia. So it is a type of GBS in which the patient will have a ophthalmoplegia, areflexia as well as the ataxia, and it is usually seen in the adults and children. It is an uncommon one, and the antibodies are directed against GQ1B antibodies. So you will get a GQ1B antibodies. So the antibodies are different according to the variant of GBS. When you go for the electrodiagnostic, it will show the predominance of the demyelinating feature, and it resembles the AIDP according to the pathophysiology. So these are the different subtypes of GBS, that is AIDP, that is acute inflammatory demyelinating polyradiculoneuropathy, then acute motor axonal neuropathy, then acute motor sensory axonal neuropathy, then Miller-Fisher syndrome, and last is the CIDP. When the disease progression is more than 4 weeks, then it is known as the CIDP. Now come to the diagnostic criteria for GBS. How will you diagnose a patient of GBS? So there are certain required criteria and there are certain supportive criteria. So these are the required criteria. So there are the 4 required criteria. First, there is a progressive weakness of 2 or more limbs due to neuropathy. There will be areflexia. The disease duration is less than 4 weeks, and you should exclude the other causes like the vasculitis, torsades, diphtheria, botulism, porphyria, localized spinal cord or cauda equina syndrome. So these are the 4 diagnostic criteria which are required for labeling a patient as the GBS. The first is the weakness, second is areflexia, disease duration less than 4 weeks, and fourth is the exclusion of the other causes. But apart from these 4 required diagnostic criteria, there are certain supportive criteria also. First, supportive criteria, that is relatively symmetrical weakness. So it is not necessary that in patient of GBS you will get a perfect symmetrical weakness, but there may be a relatively symmetrical weakness also. Second is mild sensory involvement. It is not necessary that GBS presents to you only in the classical form. It may present in you a variant form also, where the patient is having motor form as well as the sensory form also. So mild sensory involvement. Third is the facial or other cranial nerve involvement. You may get the involvement of the facial nerve or the oculomotor nerve. Absence of fever. So because the fever excludes the GBS. If the patient is having the fever, and you should think of the other causes like the transverse myelitis. And typical CSF profile. In what is typical CSF profile in the patient of GBS? That you will get a albuminocytological dissociation. What meaning of albuminocytological dissociation? That in patients of GBS, when you go for the CSF, you will get the increased levels of proteins, but there will be no increased levels of cells. So this is known as the albuminocytological dissociation, which is a characteristic of GBS. And then there is electrophysiological evidence of demyelination. So these are the diagnostic criteria for GBS. In CSF, you will get a raised CSF protein, that is 1 to 10 gram per liter, without accompanied by pleocytosis, which is known as the albuminocytological dissociation, that is increased proteins without increase of cells. And this raised CSF protein becomes normal in less than 48 hours, and you will then get increased level of protein at the end of first week, usually 10 to 100 micro per microliter elevation. In cases of pleocytosis, if you are getting the increased level of cell as well as increased level of protein, you should think of other causes like the HIV, cytomegalovirus. Now come to the diagnostic studies. So we have first we have made a clinical diagnosis which is supported by the CSF picture, that is albuminous-cytological dissociation. Then we have to confirm your diagnosis. Then the confirmation is done through the electrodiagnostic study, that is the NCV, that is nerve conduction velocity, and it is the most specific and sensitive test for diagnosing the GBS. And in electrodiagnostic studies, you will get a variety of abnormalities indicating the demyelination, that is slowing of the nerve conduction velocity, partial motor conduction block, abnormal temporal dispersion, and prolonged distal latencies. So according to the variety, you may get either predominance of demyelination or predominance of the axonal damage. A normal study after several days of symptoms makes the diagnosis of GBS unlikely. So if you are getting the normal NCV, then your diagnosis is not correct, then you should think of other diagnosis, because if your diagnosis is correct, the patient will always have a positive electrodiagnostic study showing either the demyelination or the axonal damage. Now come to the treatment. You have made a diagnosis, you have confirmed the diagnosis with the electrodiagnostic study. Now you have to treat the patient. So the treatment should be started as soon as possible. There should not be any delay, because each day counts. Because if you start your treatment later on, then this treatment will not be effective. So you should make a diagnosis and start the treatment as early as possible. So because 2 weeks after the first motor symptom, the immunotherapy is no longer effective. If you are giving the immunotherapy in the later part of the disease, it will not work. You should give the immunotherapy as early as possible. This immunotherapy is maybe in the form of IVIG, or you may go for plasmapheresis. But IVIG, it is more effective than the plasmapheresis. And in the trials it has been seen that the combination is not effective. Either you should go for IVIG. If the IVIG is not there, if the patient is not affordable to the IVIG because it is a expensive drug, then you should go for the plasmapheresis. And the IVIG, in the IVIG we give injections for the 5 days, and the total dose of the IVIG is 2 gram per kilogram body weight. So around 120 milligram, 120 gram body weight, 120 gram of IVIG is given to a adult healthy. And the plasmapheresis is in the dose of 40 to 50 ml per kg 4 times a week. This treatment, either in the form of IVIG or the plasmapheresis, reduces the need for ventilation, because it has been seen when the patient presents to you with the weakness of the lower limbs, this weakness may ascend upwards and the patient may get the involvement of the respiratory muscles, and whenever there is involvement of respiratory muscles, there may be need of mechanical ventilation. So if you start the IVIG or the plasmapheresis, it reduces the need for ventilation by half and increases the full recovery at a year. And glucocorticoids are not effective in GBS. So you should not give steroids. Steroids are given only for the treatment of transverse myelitis. So you should diagnose effectively, because the treatment approach is different. The transverse myelitis is treated with the glucocorticoids, while the GBS is treated with the IVIG or the plasmapheresis. But in certain mild cases, you may try the conservative management when the patient's weakness is not severe and it is not progressive. In that cases, we can give a supportive treatment and we can keep the patient in the observation. So what is IVIG? The IVIG contains the pooled donor Ig antibodies, and it reduces the severity of autoimmune inflammation by blocking the Fc receptors. This prevents the Fc portion of antibodies binding and thus interrupts the antibody-mediated cell destruction, and the complement activation is also altered. So the IVIG prevents the autoimmune destruction in the body. And what is plasmapheresis? In plasmapheresis, we remove the patient's plasma, we send it to the machine, and this machine removes the mediators or inflammatory mediators in the plasma, including the alloantibodies, autoimmune antibodies, and the antigen antibody complexes, abnormal or increased amount of plasma proteins, very high cholesterol levels, high levels of plasma metabolic waste products, and plasma bound drugs or the poisons. But in this case, this plasmapheresis removes the inflammatory antibodies or the destructive antibodies from the plasma of the patient. And this decreasing level of decreased mediator can relieve the symptoms, but it is not curative. So you can go for IVIG or you can go for the plasmapheresis. Apart from this definitive management, there is a certain role of nursing management also. Here the treatment is non-specific and symptomatic. You should observe patient continuously for the respiration, because these patients may land up into the need for mechanical ventilation at any time due to involvement of respiratory muscles. So continuous watch on the patient is very necessary. If the respiration is poor, you should put the patient on the mechanical ventilation. The continuous ECG monitoring is there. Why the need of continuous ECG monitoring? Because in certain patients the autonomic failure may be occur, and this autonomic failure may leads to the tachycardia or the bradycardia. You should give a supportive nursing care measures indicated by the patient degree of paralysis. The residual efforts are rare, but prolonged facet paralysis leads to the muscle atrophy requiring the rehabilitation and physiotherapy. And prognosis, in majority of the cases the complete recovery is there, so prognosis is good. The rehabilitation can take up to 1 year, although residual effects can be present up to 3 to 6 years. And the patient disability is seen in only 20 to 30% cases. That means the recovery is seen in the majority of the patient, around 70 to 80% patients. When there are certain factors which are associated with the poor prognosis. And what are these factors? Like old age, requirement for the respiratory support, abnormal nerve function, no plasmapheresis is done, primary axonal degeneration, patient having the rapid onset of the disease, progression to quadriplegia, respiratory dependence, severe disease at the presentation, Campylobacter jejuni infection, and patient showing no improvement at the 3 weeks of plateau of disease. In these cases, there are chances that the patient recovery will not occur. So these are the poor prognostic factors. And when you are dealing with the GBS, certain differential diagnosis must be kept in mind, and these differential may be in the form of acute spinal cord disease, carcinomatous or lymphomatous meningitis, myasthenia gravis, critical care illness, neuropathy, thiamine deficiency, periodic paralysis, corticosteroid-induced myopathy, toxins, acute hypophosphatemia, prolonged use of neuromuscular junction blocking drugs, stick paralysis, vascular poliomyelitis, acute intermittent porphyria, and the functional paralysis. So these are the different diseases which comes in the differential diagnosis of GBS. But if a patient is presenting you with progressive symmetrical weakness, so the patient will see that the weakness starting from both the limbs, there is a symmetrical weakness, and this weakness is ascending upwards, and there is a poor motor involvement. You may get a sensory involvement also, but in majority cases you will get a motor involvement. And when you check for the reflexes of this patient, you will check the knee jerk, ankle jerk, and the plantar. These are no response, that is the reflexia is there, and the patient does not having the bowel and bladder involvement, so it's 99.9% it is a GBS. So you should make the diagnosis, confirm the diagnosis with the CSF, do the CSF. It will show the albuminocytological dissociation. Only the protein part is increased, no cell part is increased, and you go for the NCV. This NCV will show either demyelinating part or the axonal part. Then you should start with the IVG. You should see a miraculous response with the IVIG. The patient who is not able to walk, the patient walks on the second day after giving the IVIG or the plasmapheresis. So the diagnosis should be certain, because if your diagnosis is not GBS, then it is the wastage of money. Thank you.